Okay, folks, I would like to discuss some common guitar myths and misunderstandings that you may have heard from other teachers or teaching resources. What we do on the instrument is heavily dependent on what styles of music we're playing, what our interests are, things like that. Good example would be discussion of where left thumb should be positioned. Some people will say, for instance, that you always want to be in classical thumb position, with your thumb here allowing you to reach a wide variety of notes and have all of your fingers available, but you always use your pinky in this juxtaposition and so forth, that it's just a four-finger world. That's true if you're playing exactly bar chords, where aside from reinventing them, you have to be in classical thumb position. Or if you're doing a scale or riff that involves big reaches like this. We can't, that's impossible with thumb over top. So if we had to pick a thumb position, it would be classical position, that being the one we've just discussed. But we don't have to pick one, that's the good news. It neither goes that that's how you always play, or that this is the cool way, and that you just throw your thumb over the top and rip it, and if you ever go like this, the whole thing smacks of effort or something, or you're trying too hard, or it's not punk rock or something along those lines. Again, it just depends on what we're playing. They gave you a couple of classic examples of when we would use this thumb position. There are some for thumb over top. For most people playing first position chords, like G, C, F, A, and so forth, thumb over top is most intuitive unless somebody told them to do it the other way. When we're digging into things like blues riffs that have a lot of bends and nuance to them, it's no longer about efficiency whatsoever. Because then what we're doing is highly nuanced things on simple structures. For instance, pentatonic 1. You get a lot of teachers who will teach you to use your pinky here and here. But then when you see them playing, they don't even do that themselves when they're playing a certain type of riff. For jazz and so forth, an approach of four-finger and swap out your ring for your pinky when you bend, that works. But in truth, it just depends on what kind of phrasing you're playing. We're going to have our thumb over the top so we can get the kind of leverage we need to do things like, if I tried to do that in classical position, I could, but it would, be reinventing the wheel. So there's the good news. If you've been struggling with trying to figure out one place to put your left thumb, there is no one place. It completely depends on what you're playing. There's the good news. There's just more and more good news. Let's talk about right hand when we're playing finger-style guitar. People will say that the way you approach it is put your pinky here, that anchors you in, I'm going to refer to that as a pinky anchor, and then you pick from that position 100% of the time. Again, this would be true if all you ever played was classical guitar. If it was all very single notey, that would be a very efficient position to be in. But there's downsides, even for classical playing. Chiefly, the inability to do percussive things in between your single note picking. Playing styles like blues and so forth, or funk, or whatever, you may be playing something that's then it'll have a percussive value like that's literally impossible to do in this position. So I'm of the mind that we should just set up in an efficient position where our thumb is in this juxtaposition, not this one, which is something people are tempted to do a lot at first, as it allows them to see their fingers and so forth. But what we want is your thumb more parallel to the string. You could put your pinky there. If it feels very intuitive to you, go ahead and do it as your default setting. And then we'll talk about how to interject these percussive phrasings and get out of that position when it calls for it. But it by no means is the end-all be-all to where you put your right hand. This playing fingerstyle or playing with a pick. Again, if you're playing like a metal solo with never just a fast succession of notes using alternate picking, then on the high strings, meaning strings 1, 2, and 3, it might make sense to anchor in there and do things like sweep picks and really fast down-up picking. But then, when we get to the bass strings, if we're anchored down here, our picking becomes this little teeny movement that's really inhibiting and, again, will lead to a very single note heavy style, as opposed to being able to be doing that thing we were doing a moment ago and then do something like that, which again the difference was it's percussive. There you have it. There's a million things we can't do anchored in, like play funk. The classical example never would work in a million years to anchor in there. So you can often think about your picking as little strums, if you will. We're going for efficiency, we're going for the range of motion that we're looking for, but we by no means have to put our hands here at any point. There's the good news. If it's felt intuitive to do that or counterintuitive, the truth is we need to do multiple things for multiple contexts. Again, unless you are literally just the classical guitarist, in which case you probably won't be doing a lot of percussive ideas. So there we have it. Sometimes guitar playing is about efficiency and highly efficient ergonomic technique. Sometimes it's about doing very nuanced things on simple technique, where efficiency and using 4 fingers over 4 frets and being anchored in over here is not appropriate and or literally won't let you play the song, the section of the song that you're working on. So there you have it. There's a couple examples of things that people present as being absolute, whereas, in fact, it's very highly dependent on what you're undertaking as a musician within one riff, one song, or one lifetime. So there you have it.